Atomic Habits, Chapter 1. The Surprising Power of Atomic Habits. The fate of British cycling changed one day in 2003. The organization, which was governing body for professional cycling in Great Britain, had recently hired Dave Brailsford as its new performance director. At the time, professional cyclists in Great Britain had endured nearly 100 years of mediocrity. Since 1908, British riders had won just a single gold medal at the Olympic Games, and they had fared even worse in cycling's biggest race, the Tour de France. In 110 years, no British cyclist had ever won the event. In fact, the performance of British riders had been so underwhelming that one of the top bike manufacturers in Europe refused to sell the bikes to the team because they were afraid that it would hurt sales if other professionals saw Brits using their gears. Brailsford had been hired to put British cycling on a new trajectory. What made him different from previous coaches was his relentless commitment to a strategy that he referred to as aggregation of marginal gains, which was the philosophy of searching for a tiny margin of improvement in everything you do. Brailsford said the whole principle came from the idea that if you broke down everything you could think of that goes into riding a bike, then improve it by 1%, you will get a significant increase when you put them all together. Brailsford and his coaches began by making small adjustments you might expect from professional cycling teams. They redesigned bike seats to make them more comfortable and rubbed alcohol on the tires for a better grip. They asked riders to wear electrically heated overshorts to maintain ideal muscle temperature while riding, and used biofeedback sensors to monitor how each athlete responds to a particular workout. The team tested various fabrics in a wind tunnel and had their outdoor riders switch to indoor racing suits, which proved to be lighter and more aerodynamic. But they did not stop here. Brailsford and his team continued to find 1% improvement in overlooked and unexpected areas. They tested different types of massage gel to see which one led to the fastest muscle recovery. They hired a surgeon to teach each rider the best way to wash their hands to reduce the chance of catching a cold. They determined the type of pillows and mattress that led to best night's sleep for each rider. They even painted the inside of the team truck white, which helped them spot little bits of dust that would normally slip by unnoticed but could degrade the performance of finely tuned bikes. As these and hundreds of other small improvements accumulated, the results came faster than anyone could have imagined. Just 5 years after Brailsford took over, the British cycling team dominated the road and the track cycling event at 2008 Olympic Games in Beijing, where they won an astounding 60% of the gold medals available. 4 years later, when the Olympic Games came to London, the Brits raised the bar as they set 9 Olympic records and 7 world records. The same year, Bradley Wiggin became the first British cyclist to win the Tour de France. The next year, his teammate Chris Froome won the race. He would go on to win again in 2015, 16, 17, giving the British team 5 Tour de France victories in next 6 years. During the 10-year span from 2007 to 2017, British cyclists won 178 World Championships and 66 Olympic and Paralympic gold medals, and captured 5 Tours de France victories in what is widely regarded as the most successful run in the cycling history. How does this happen? How does a team of previously ordinary athletes transformed into world champions with tiny changes that first glance would seem to make a modest difference at best? Why do small improvements accumulate into such remarkable results? And how can you replicate this approach in your own life? Why small habits make a big difference? It is so easy to overestimate the importance of one defining moment and underestimate the value of making small improvements on a daily basis. Too often, we convince ourselves that massive success requires massive actions, whether it is losing weight, building a business, writing a book, winning a championship, or achieving any other goal. We put pressure on ourselves to make some earth shattering improvements that everyone will talk about. Meanwhile, improvement by 1% isn't particularly notable. Sometimes it isn't even noticeable, but it can be far more meaningful, especially in long run. The difference a tiny improvement can make over time is astounding. Here's how maths work out. If you can get 1% better each day for 1 year, you will end up 37 times better by the time you are done. Conversely, if you get 1% worse each day for 1 year, you will decline nearly to zero. What starts as a small win or a minor setback accumulates into something much more. Habits are the compound interest of self improvement. The same way that money multiplies through compound interest, the effects of your habit multiplies as you repeat them. They seem to make little difference on any given day, and yet the impact they deliver over the months and years can be enormous. It is only when looking back 2, 5, or perhaps 10 years later that the value of good habits and the cost of bad ones becomes strikingly apparent. This can be a difficult concept to appreciate in daily life. We often dismiss small changes because they don't seem to matter very much in the moment. If you save a little money now, you will still not be a millionaire. If you go to the gym 3 days in a row, you will still be out of shape. If you study Mandarin for an hour tonight, you will still haven't learned the language. We make a few changes, but the result never seems to come quickly. So we slide back to our previous routine. Unfortunately, the slow pace of transformation also makes it easy to let a bad habit slide. If you eat an unhealthy meal today, the scale does not move much. If you work late tonight and ignore your family, they will forgive you. If you procrastinate and put your projects off until tomorrow, there will usually be a time to finish it later. A single decision is easy to dismiss. But when we repeat 1% errors day after day by replicating poor decisions, duplicating tiny mistakes, and rationalizing little excuses, our small choices compounds into toxic results. It's the accumulation of many missteps, 1% decline here and there, that eventually leads to a problem. The impact created by a change in your habits is similar to the effects of shifting the route of an aeroplane by just a few degrees. Imagine you are flying to Los Angeles from New York City. If a pilot leaving from Los Angeles adjusted heading just 3.5 degrees south, you will land up in Washington DC instead of New York. Such a small change is barely noticeable at takeoff. The nose of airplane moves just a few feet, but when magnified across the entire United States, you end up hundreds of miles apart. Similarly, a slight change in your daily habit can guide your life to a very different destination. Making a choice that is 1% better or 1% worse seems insignificant in the moment, but over the span, that makes up a lifetime. These choices determine the difference between who you are and who you could be. The success is product of our daily habits, not once in a lifetime transformation. They said it does not matter how successful or unsuccessful you are right now. What matters is whether your habits are putting you on a path towards success. You should be far more concerned with your current trajectory than your current results. If you are a millionaire but you spend more than you earn each month, then you are on a bad trajectory. If your spending habits don't change, it's not going to end well. Conversely, if you are broke but you save a little bit every month, then you are on a path towards financial freedom, even if you are moving slower than you would like. Your outcomes are a lagging measure of your habits. Your net worth is a lagging measure of your financial habits. Your weight is lagging measure of your eating habits. Your knowledge is of your learning habits. Your clutter is of your cleaning habits. You get what you repeat. If you want to predict where you will end up in life, all you have to do is follow the curve of tiny gains and losses and see how daily choices will compound 10 or 20 times 20 years down the line. You Are you spending less than you earn every month? Are you making it into the gym each week? Are you reading books or learning something new each day? Tiny battles like these are the ones that will define your future self. Time magnifies the margin between success and failure. It will multiply whenever you feed it. Good habits make the time you alive. Bad habits make time your enemy. Habits are double-edged sword. Bad habits can cut you down just as easily as good habits can build you up. Which is why understanding the details is crucial. You need to know how habits work, how to design them to your liking, so you can avoid the dangerous half of the blade. What progress is really like? Imagine that you have an ice cube sitting on the table in front of you. The room is cold and you can see your breath. It is currently 25 degrees. Ever so slowly, the room begins to heat up. 26 degrees, 27, 28. The ice cube is still sitting on the table in front of you. 29 degrees, 30, 31. Still, nothing has happened. Then 32 degrees, the ice begins to melt. A 1 degree shift, seemingly no different from the temperature increases before it, has unlocked a huge change. Breakthrough moments are often the result of many previous actions which build up the potential required to unleash a major change. This pattern shows up everywhere. Cancer spends 80% of its life undetectable, then takes over the body in a month. Bamboo is barely be seen for the first 5 years. as it builds extensive root system under the ground before exploding 90 feet into the air within 6 months weeks. Similarly, habits often appear to make no difference until you cross a critical threshold and unlock a new level of performance. In the early middle stages of any quest, there is often a valley of disappointments. You expect to make progress in a linear fashion, and it's frustrating how ineffective changes can seem during the first days, weeks, and even months. It doesn't feel like you are going anywhere. It's a hallmark of any compounding progress. The most powerful outcomes are delayed. This is one of the core reasons why it is so hard to build a habit that lasts. People make a few small changes, fail to see a tangible result, and decide to stop. You think I'll I have been running every day for months, so why can't I see any change in my body? Once this kind of thinking takes over, it is easy to let go. Good habits fall by the wayside. But in order to make a meaningful difference, habits need to persist long enough to break through this plateau. What I call the plateau of latent potential. If you find yourself struggling to build a good habit or break a bad one, it is not because you have lost your ability to improve. It is often because you have not yet crossed that plateau of latent potential. Complaining about not achieving success despite working hard is like complaining about an ice cube not melting when you heated it from 25 degrees to 31 degrees. Your work was not wasted, it is just being stored. All the action happens at 32 degrees. When you finally break through the plateau of latent potential, people will call it an overnight success. The outside world only sees the most dramatic event rather than all that preceded it. But you know that it's the work you did long ago when it seemed that you weren't making any progress that makes the jump possible today. It is the human equivalent of geological pressure. Two tectonic plates can grind against one another for a million of years, the tension slowly building all the while. Then one day they rub each other once again, in the same fashion they have done for ages. But this time the tension is too great. The earthquake erupts. Change can take years before it happens all at once. Mastery requires patience. The San Antonio Spurs, one of the most successful teams in NBA history, have a quote from social reformer Jacob Riis hanging on their locker rooms. When nothing seems to happen, I go and look at Stonecutter hammering away with his rock, perhaps 100 times without as much as a crack showing in it. Yet the 101st blow it will split into two, and I know it was not that last blow that did it, but all that had gone. We often expect progress to be linear. At the very least, we hope it will come quickly. In reality, the result of our efforts are often delayed. It is not until months or years later when we realize the true value of the previous work we have done. This can result in valley of disappointments, where people feel discouraged after putting in weeks or months of hard work without experiencing any results. However, this work was not wasted at all. It was simply being stored. It is not until much later that the full value of previous efforts is revealed. All big things come from small beginnings. The seed of every habit is a single tiny decision, but as the decision is repeated, the habit sprouts and grows stronger. Roots entrench themselves and branches grow. The task of breaking a bad habit is like uprooting powerful oak within us. And the task of building a good habit is like cultivating a delicate flower one day at a time. But what determines whether we stick with a habit long enough to survive the plateau of latent potential and break through to the old sides? What is it that causes some people to slide into unwanted habits and enables others to enjoy the compounding effects of good ones? Forget about the goals, focus on the system instead. Prevailing wisdom claims that the best way to achieve what we want in life, getting into better shape, building a successful business, relaxing more and worrying less, spending more time with family and friends, is to set specific actionable goals. For many years, this was how I approached my habits too. Each one was a goal to be reached. I set goals for the grade 1. I wanted to get in school. For the weights, I wanted to lift in the gym. For the profits, I wanted to earn in the business. I succeeded at few of them, but I failed a lot. Eventually, I began to realize that my results had very little to do with the goal I set and nearly everything to do within the system I followed. What's the difference between systems and goals? It's a distinction I first learned from Scott Adams, the cartoonist behind the Dilbert comic. Goals are about the results you want to achieve, systems are about the processes that lead to those results. If you are a coach, your goal might be to win the championship. Your system is the way you recruit players, manage your assistants, coaches, and conduct practices. If you are an entrepreneur, your goal might be to build $1 million business. Your system is how you test product ideas, hire employees, and run marketing campaigns. If you are a musician, your goal might be to play a new piece. Your system is how often you practice, how you break down and tackle difficult measures, and your method to receive feedback from your instructors. Now, for the interesting question: if you completely ignored your goals and focused only on your system, would you still succeed? For example, if you were a basketball coach and you ignored your goal to win the championship and focused only on what your team does as a practice each day, would you still get the results? I think you would. The goal in any sport is to finish the best score, but it would be ridiculous to spend the whole game staring at the scoreboard. The only way to actually win is to get better each day. In other words, of 3 time Super Bowl winner Bill Welch, the score takes care of itself. The same is true for other areas of life. If you want better results, then forget about setting goals. Focus on the system instead. What do I mean by this? Are goals completely useless? Of course not. The goals are good for setting a direction, but systems are best for making progress. A handful of problems arise when you spend too much time thinking about your goals and not enough time designing your system. Problem 1: Winners and losers. have same goals. Goals settings suffer from the serious case of survivorship bias. We concentrate on people who end up winning, the survivors. Mistakenly assume that ambitious goal led to their success while overlooking all of the people who had the same objectives but didn't succeed. Every Olympian wants to win a gold medal. Every candidate wants to get the job. And if successful and unsuccessful people share the same goal, then the goal cannot be what differentiates the winner from the loser. It wasn't the goal of winning the Tour de France that propelled the British cyclist to top the sport. Presumably, they had wanted to win the race every year before, just like every other professional team. The goal had always been there. It was only when they implemented a system to continuous small improvement that they achieved a different outcome. Problem number 2. Achieving a goal is only a momentary change. Imagine you have a messy room and you set a goal to clean it. If you summon the energy to tidy up, then you will have a clean room for now. But if you maintain the same sloppy, pack rat habits that led to a messy room in the first place, soon you'll be looking at a new pile of clutter and hoping for another burst of motivation. You are left chasing the same outcome because you never changed the system behind it. You treated a system without addressing the cause. Achieving a goal only changes your life for the moment. That's the counterintuitive thing about improvement. We think we need to change our result, but the results are not the problem. What we really need to change are the systems that cause those results. When you solve problems at the result level, you only solve them temporarily. In order to improve for good, you need to solve problems at the system level. Fix the input and the output will be fixed themselves. Problem 3. Goals restrict your happiness. The implicit assumption behind any goal is this: once I reach the goal, then I'll be happy. The problem with the goal first mentality is you are continuously putting happiness off until the next milestone. I have slipped into the trap so many times I have lost count. For years, happiness was always something for my future self to enjoy. I promised myself that once I gained 20 pounds of muscles, or after my business was featured in New York Times, then I could finally relax. Furthermore, goals create an either or conflict. Either you achieve your goal and or are successful, or you fail and you are a disappointment. You mentally box yourself into a narrow version of happiness. This is misguided. It is unlikely that your actual path through life will match the exact journey you had in mind when you set out. It makes no sense to resist your satisfaction to one scenario when there are many paths to succeed. A system first mentality provides the antidote. When you fall in love with the process rather than the product, you don't have to wait to give yourself permission to be happy. You can be satisfied anytime. Your system is running, and a system can be successful in many different forms, not just the one you first envision. Problem number 4. Goals are at odds with long term progress. Finally, a goal oriented mindset can create a yo yo effect. Many runners work hard for months, but as soon as they cross the finish line, they stop training. The race is no longer their motivation. When all of your work hard thing is focused on a particular goal, What is left to push you forward after achieving it? This is why many people find themselves reverting to their old habits after accomplishing a goal. The purpose of setting goal is to win the game. The purpose of building system is to continue playing the game. True long-term thinking is goal-less thinking. It's not about any single achievement. It's about cycle of endless refinement and continuous improvement. Ultimately, it is your commitment to the process that will determine your progress. A system of atomic habits. If you are having trouble changing your habits, the problem isn't you. The problem is your system. Bad habits repeat themselves again and again, not because you don't want to change, but because you have the wrong system for the change. You do not rise to the level of your goal, you fall to the level of your system. Focusing on the overall system rather than a single goal is one of the core themes of this book. It is also one of the deeper meaning behind the word atomic. By now, you have probably realized that an atomic habit refers to a tiny change, a marginal gain, a 1% improvement. But atomic habits are not just any old habits, however small. They are little habits that are part for a larger system. Just as atoms are the building blocks of the molecules, atomic habits are the building blocks of the remarkable results. Habits are like the atom of our lives. Each one is fundamental unit that contributes to your overall improvement. At first, these tiny routines seem insignificant, but soon they build on each other and fuel bigger wins that multiply to a degree that far outweighs the cost of their initial investment. They are both small and mighty. This is the meaning of phrase atomic habits, a regular practice, a routine that is not only small and easy to do, but also the source of incredible power, a component of the system of compound growth. Summary of Chapter 1. Habits are compound interest of self improvement. Getting 1% better every day counts for a lot in long run. Habits are the double-edged sword. They can work for you or against you, which is why understanding the details is essential. Small changes often appear to make no difference until you cross a critical threshold. Most powerful outcomes of any compounding process are delayed. You need to be patient. An atomic habit is a little habit that is part of a larger system, just as an atom that are the building blocks of molecules. Atomic habits are the building blocks of remarkable results. If you want better results, then forget about setting goals. Focus on your system instead. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your system.